Hi and welcome back to part 2 of this tutorial in which we're looking at creating this space station corridor scene. And the first thing I'd like to do is to do a little bit of animation on these floor and ceiling lights so that they come on in sequence. So how are we going to do that? First of all, let's twirl open the lights group here. I'm going to start with my ceiling lights here. I'm going to select that replicator and then hit Command 2 for the library. Behaviors, replicator, sequence replicator, and I'm going to drag that onto this ceiling lights replicator. And I'll come to 3 seconds on my timeline and I'll hit O to set an out point there. F2 to come to the controls for the sequence replicator, and here under parameter we're going to add opacity and we're going to set the opacity value down to 0. And where it says sequencing, we're going to select from. What that will do is animate the opacity of those lights sequentially. So if we scrub through, we see that's happening. But what's happening is that it's beginning at the center. So how do we fix that? Well, let's select the replicator and come to its replicator controls, and here where it says origin, I'm going to select top. And now we scrub through, you'll see that that animates away from us. Very nice. So let's do the same thing for the left and the right. So I'll alt drag that sequence replicator onto right lights, come to the replicator controls, again select top, again copy it by alt dragging it onto the left lights, and again come to the replicator controls and set origin top. And now all of those are animating on just like that. We could, if we like, just slightly change the length of some of these just so it doesn't happen all exactly at the same speed. There we go, just adds a little bit of organic variation to that. Okay, so that's a fun thing to have done. Let's move on and start looking at creating some panels to go round the shell. So to do that, I'm going to create another project, but first of all I just want to steal the Rust image out of here. So I'm going to do Command C to grab that. Let's make a new project, and doesn't matter the dimensions just yet, and let's paste that Rust layer into it. And all we need to do is we need to remove that image mask. Command J for the project properties, and we're going to set a width of 250 and a height of 550. And zoom in, F6 to hide the track view. Right, so we want to add some texture to this panel. So in order to do that, let's make a new group, Command Shift N, doesn't need to be 3D, and let's select R for the rectangle tool, and let's draw a rectangle that is more or less the same size as the Rust layer, and center it up. F4 to come to its properties here, let's turn off the fill, turn on the outline, and let's have an outline of, say, 15, something like that. Then let's duplicate that rectangle, Command D, and just shrink it down, holding down the Option key as I do so to shrink it down to the middle like that, till we get something like that. And we can probably turn on Preserve Width here on the outline, just to keep it tidy. Then we're going to select the Line tool, which is down here under Rectangle. And we're going to hit F7 for the HUD. I want to make sure that width is 20 pixels. And then I'm going to draw from the top left to the bottom right, like so. And from the top right to the bottom left, like that. I think I might just take those two and reduce the width a bit. Let's try 15. And I'll take this center rectangle, holding down the Option key. I'm just going to drag till we've got a rectangle that's fitting inside those lines like that. Maybe I'll just drag it out as well a bit. Split the difference. Something like that. Command 2 for the library, generators, and I'm going to select grid, and I'm going to bring it in. Then F4 for its controls. Let's just reduce its width right down till we get to about there, and height till we get to about there. Let's increase the background height, say to 15, or maybe even 20, like that. I just need to add one more thing, which is a black solid behind that. So Command 2 for the library, color solid, bring that in. Command Shift forward square bracket to move it behind. Come to the inspector, set that color to black. And we can turn that group off. Okay, now let's come to the library, having selected this base group here. Command 2, come to filters, scroll down to stylize. Let's again look for indent and add it to the group. F3 for the inspector, and then let's drag that group that we've made above into the height map well and turn off stretch to fit. Let's turn the ambient right down, the brightness right up. Let's set the softness to about 0.2. Let's make a few adjustments to this group here. Come to the grid and let's adjust the feather. So that creates a much more interesting effect. So turn the feather right up like that. Having done so, we need to just slightly adjust those numbers there. Maybe increase the height like that. Maybe let's reduce that width there. Something like that I think is quite nice. And maybe take that first rectangle, which is the outer rectangle, and turn on the overlays like that. I think I'm just going to hold down the Option key and just slightly shrink it in so we get a little bit of edge detail like that. And maybe just shrink it down at the top as well, just so we get a bit of detail at the top like that. Then I think we just need to tidy up those lines there. Toggle through till we get to the edit points, and we can just move those in like that. Again at the bottom, just to tidy that up. Same with the other one. Move that point in just a little bit, and the bottom, just so we get a nice squared off effect at the edges. Turn off the overlays, Command /. So that's our basic panel, and let's turn that group off there. We can call that height map, and this one we'll call panel. Let's close that up. Let's clone that panel by hitting K and turn off the original. So it's becoming 3D. I don't want it to become 3D. Let's now change the project size by hitting Command J, and instead of 250 for the width, let's multiply that by 4 so we get 1000, which is the gap between our arches. I'm also going to adjust this rust here so that we just get the panel. So I'm going to make a new group just above the rust, Command Shift N, and put it inside, and come to the group itself and set fixed resolution. Let's set the fixed width to 250, and that creates just a panel that's only 250 wide. So I'm going to take my clone, I'm going to hit L for the replicator. Under the shape I'm going to select line, and the start point X I'm going to adjust till we're on the left edge of the frame, and then right edge of the frame with the other one. So that's -375 and +375. And I just need to adjust the number of points, so we're at 4. So there we go. I've got a set of 4 panels that now look like that, and just need to do one thing, which is to come to the indent filter and adjust the light direction. I want it coming from the top, so I'll enter a value of 90, and the light comes down from the top. That's going to look better in our scene. So now what we need to do is to come to the share menu as before, Save current frame. This time we can use a JPEG to take advantage of it being smaller. Hit next, and what we'll call this is roof panel. And save that out. And let's call this project roof panel. And we can close it on down. Okay, so now let's come to our file browser and look for that roof panel JPEG that we've just created and drag it in to the project. Let's now hit L to make a replicator. Come to the inspector, F4, leave the shape to rectangle, and let's set the columns to 11 and the rows to 1. And let's look at the size here. Let's set a width of 10,000. And now we get a row of panels. F1 for the transform. I'm going to set the Y rotation to 90, the X rotation to 47. I'm going to adjust the Y anchor point to 275. Adjust the X position to -240 and the Y position to 540. And now, as if by magic, that's appeared hanging off the top left-hand corner of the structure. So quite a lot of details there. So X position is -240, Y position is 540, the X rotation is 47 degrees, which I've calculated based on that angle there. The Y rotation is 90 degrees, and this anchor point is +275 on Y. And the only other thing we need to do is to set a Z position of -4500. And that will move it back on Z, so it's running all the way to the back of our scene. Let's turn off the light just so you can see. There we go. So let's call this roof left and then duplicate it, Command D, and call it roof right. F1 for its transform. Let's set a rotation of -47 on X and an X position of +240, so it pops over there to the right. So that's our left and right roof panels done. Now we can reuse those same replicators to fill in the sides. So I'm going to select roof left and I'll call it side left. F1 for its transform. I'm going to zero out the X rotation, and then I'm going to set an X value of -800. And let's just move it down to 250. So it's sitting there. And then duplicate it, Command D, call it side right. F1 for its transform, and simply enter an X value of 800. And now we're starting to fill in the corridor. Okay, so let's tidy that up a bit, move that one down so we've got our two sides and two roofs. Let's call these group panels, just so we're a little bit tidier. Next, let's make some panels to run along the ceiling where these lights are. So I'm going to use my previous project, the roof panel project. Open that back up again, and I'm going to save it as ceiling panel. So let's first of all delete that group that had the replicators in it, and let's turn back on that panel group. Let's hit Command J to come to the project properties. Now the width I want to set to 480, which is the width of my ceiling, and the height I want to set to 1000, which is the gap between the arches. So now I need to adjust this so it fits properly into this new shape. So if you remember, we set the fixed resolution of this group to 250/580, so we know we need to do 480 by 1000. And that's made that rust panel fit our new project size. So let's now come to our height map. So we just need to adjust all these variables here. So I'm going to take my base rectangle, Command / and I'm going to scale it up till it fits like that. I'm going to take the center rectangle and let's hold down the Alt key and just scale that up as well to something like that. Hold down the Alt key, increase the vertical like that. Then let's take these lines and tab through till we get to Edit Points and grab that, bring it up into the corner, grab this one, bring it down into the corner, grab the other line, pull this corner up into the top left, this corner down into the bottom right, and then just take this grid and let's just increase the width here like so, and increase the height like that. Turn off the overlays. Could do with a little bit more finessing. Let's take this rectangle maybe and just move it across like that. That fits a bit better. We're going to save that, Command S, come to the Share menu, Share, Save Current Frame, select JPEG since we don't need transparency, and let's call this Ceiling Panel JPEG and save that. Then we can close that on down, Command W, and come back to our Space Station project itself. Come to the File Browser, locate the ceiling panel and drag it into our panels group. And I can turn that off. Let's select the side right and duplicate that because I can use that replicator the way it's set up. And then I'm going to call that Ceiling Panels. And I'm going to take the ceiling panel and drag it into the ceiling panel replicator cell, like that. Hit F4 for the replicator controls, selecting the replicator itself. Now we need to swap this around. We need a height of 10,000 I should say, and we need columns of 1 and rows of 11. Come to the transform here. Let's set the X position to 0, the Y position to -540, and then the X rotation to 90 degrees and the Y rotation to 0. And we just also need to zero out this anchor point here. And I would have made a mistake here in the Y value. Instead of -540, it needs to be +540. So you can see it's sitting on the floor there. If I type 540, as if like magic, we've now got a set of panels running along the ceiling. And those lights sit nicely in that center area there. And now we can conveniently take that ceiling panels replicator and duplicate it to fill in along here where these side lights are. So let's duplicate that, Command D, and let's call this lower left. F1 for its transform. Let's zero out the X rotation, have a Y rotation of 90 and a Z rotation of 90, and let's set the X position to -900 and the Y position to -450. And that's now popped that very neatly in behind these side lights. If I turn off the light, you can see how neatly that's all fitting together. I just need to push these lights back to that position there. So if I come to my lights here and select my left lights, I had a value of 800 there, -800. Let's make it -899. So it's just sitting 1 pixel in front of the panels. And let's do exactly the same with the right. Set a value of 899. Just pushes them back. And then I can select my lower left up here that I've just made, duplicate that, call it lower right, F1 for its transform, and set the X position to 900. And that fills that in on the right. So turn our light back on again, and we're really starting to get there. The next detail I'd like to add is some warning tape, hazard tape, that runs along the bottom edge of these vertical side panels. So I'm going to make a new group, Command-Shift-N, and I'm going to come to the library, Command-2, generators, and I'm going to select down here the stripes generator, and I'm going to bring that into that group that I've just made. I'm going to select that group, F4 for the inspector for the group, and I want to make it 2D, and I want to set it to fixed resolution, and I want the fixed width to be 20 and the fixed height to be 1000, like so. So select the generator, and let's set these colours. Colour 1 I want to be a nice bright yellow, and colour 2 I want to be a nice warning red, something like that. And what I want to do with this stripes group, I want to hit F1 for its transform. Let's close down the colour, come to the Z rotation and select an angle of 45 degrees. And now that gives me this angled stripes. F4 for the stripes generator. Let's set a size of 30. Gives us that. Select the group. Let's call that warning tape or something. Let's select that group and hit L to make a replicator. And let's leave it set to rectangle, and we want one column. We want 11 rows. Let's twirl open the size, and let's set the height to 10,000 again. And now we've got a very long strip. Let's just move it into position. So select it, F1 for the transform. First of all, I'm going to set the Y rotation to 90 and the Z rotation to 90. And then I'll set the X position to -799. And that moves it over here. And the Y position to -300. Sticks it down on the bottom of that, and we just need to set that Z position to -4500 again. So this is warning left. Let's duplicate that, Command D, call it warning right, F1 for its transform, and set that X position to 799. And that gives us a duplicate of that. And although that isn't a large detail, it just adds a little flash of colour that helps to bring the scene alive. So I had hoped to complete this tutorial within this part 2, but it looks as though I've run over yet again, and there's still quite a bit more I'd like to show you without rushing it too much. So there will be now a part 3, and I hope you can join me for that, where we'll finish off the project. Thanks very much for watching.